I call this the tragic personalities. There are three of them. This actually, what I'm doing here is I'm reading an excerpt from a book that of mine that is released very soon. It's part of the B.B. Quincy series, which is already out. This one is called the B.B. Quincy and the Minotaur. Um, Chapter 36. I was reading through. It seemed very, very relevant. What I had written a couple years ago. Um, and it pertains to the Kings of Tupelo in regards to the way that people, their personalities are. So imagine that you live in whatever town, USA, and there's some idiot in Hackensack who has never met you, never spoken to you, and has absolutely no idea anything about you. Yet he is suddenly going around telling everyone, even people who do know you, what a horrible person you are. What's worse is, what if that person holds some sort of, quote, authority? That authority lends automatic credence to what the idiot from Hackensack says. People could start to believe it, no matter how untruthful it is. Now imagine that it's being echoed by the quote-unquote news media. Some stupid reason, they seem to have automatic credibility too. Enough of the media repeating the same lies over and over must have some sort of an effect, right? Even those who have known you for years, or in some cases, your entire life, they might begin to eventually second guess what they know as the truth. They may begin to doubt the truth that they know firsthand, and instead begin to believe the common echoed lies. So, very, very sad, pathetic statement of the human condition. But there are three tragedies converging here. First is that at least half of humanity is so sick and so depraved that they need someone to tear down. That there are people willing to create false narratives for the purpose of destruction of a noble man's name, life, identity, family, and future. That kind of muckraker who engages in such evil is in pursuit of their own self-serving purpose. They have no regard whatsoever for who becomes their target. The greater the man, in other words, the greater the target is, the more pleasure the dastardly destroyers get from it. This sickness is born of their own insecurities. This parasitic need to kind of destroy another is really their only form of self-affirmation, and it is their daily pursuit, especially when they have access to the internet. There's nothing inspiring or uplifting about this kind of person, although
this call is from a federal prison.
They seem to always demand some sort of respect for destroying some other person. In other words, it's like, did you see what damage I'd done to that other guy? Well, aren't I your hero now? This second tragic person, is part of that same half of humanity, but are the ones who cheer on that destruction. If it takes believing in the false, sometimes impossible narrative created by the muckrakers, then so be it. This is often amplified when the muckraker has a badge of some sort. Ma'am, I have a badge. And if I say your son was a bad person and did bad things, and you have to believe me, the guy who doesn't know your son, over what you think you know, even though you were there and actually know what I'm telling you is nonsense, I know him better than you do because, well, I have a badge. Or, if that muckraker is a reporter, tonight's lead story. We tell you all about George and want you to think that he did X and Y and Z. It doesn't matter what you know, because even though we don't know him, some guy with a badge who also doesn't know him told us, and how to report this story and what to say. And even though some of you that actually know him and were actually there to know that what we and everyone else is reporting is complete garbage, just forget what you know and believe us, because, we're reporters and stuff. So whatever we say just must be true. People who are willing to believe, and therefore willing to also engage in that destruction, they're what's known as crabs in a bucket. Fill a bucket full of crabs, and just as one is about to climb out, another's going to reach up, grab him, and pull him back down. This group of people, so willing to feel the same way just because someone told them to, may as well be the muckraker themselves. At a pathetic depravity, jump aboard the destruction bandwagon. Let me say that sentence again. It is a pathetic depravity to just jump aboard the destruction bandwagon, especially so if your own personal knowledge is counter to the disseminated false narrative. There is a second part to this where I cover the third tragedy, and that'll be covered in the next one. All right, part two, continuing with the Kings of Tupelo and the three tragic personalities. And sorry, I don't have a better name for it than that. It's just kind of the best I could come up with. Reading from B.B. Quincy and the Minotaur. The name of the chapter is called "It's a 10." You'll be able to get it yourself on Amazon. Uh, Continuing with the third tragedy. The third tragedy is that of a much smaller group of. This third group is that group of people that do, in fact, actually know better. They do know you, and they are personal witnesses that X, Y, and Z never happened, contrary to the mucked reporting. Or they knew full well that whatever the accusation is, it is entirely false. But despite their personal experience and knowledge of you, completely refutes the accusations of the clamoring bucket of crabs, this group fails to step up to the microphone and speak the truth when they could. Perhaps they have the integrity enough to go against the grain in pursuit of the known truth, but something is outweighing that. Fear is a powerful thing. It might actually outweigh their courage. Perhaps they themselves are afraid of ridicule. In other words, how dare you defend that person that we were all told was a bad person? That must mean you're a bad person too. Such an act of courage, that is, publicly stating the true nature of a noble man, means going against the muckraking authority or the press. And who has the courage to do that? This group of people might even become unsure about what it is that they actually know. Well, I was around my wife every day for hours at a time, obviously, and me and the family knew her better than anyone else, and we never saw her do anything wrong, ever. But if the news media and that badged guy, none of which actually knew her, if they say she's an evil, cannibalistic demon, then, well, maybe she is, because they said so. What do me and the kids know? That's almost a direct parallel to this. This group of people, whatever reason, is weak. True integrity often requires taking a stand for your values. Unfortunately, this is common. The fear being the overwhelming factor here for those people. Many like to say that they would not have allowed false accusations, result in the crucifixion of someone that they knew did not deserve it, but going against the popular rancor and the authorities is only for a heroic few. Most often, these crucifixions occur without any intervention, which gives further license to injustice, while family and loved ones just stand at the bottom of the hill, watching the crucifixion without action. Sad? Yes. Weak? Yes. Pathetic? Yes. There's no honor in being silent. But then there maybe is a tiny fraction, a percentage of people are, however, heroic enough to speak and act against such injustice. Incredibly rare. Some in this tiny faction are very dubious, but they're enlightened ones that are smart enough to automatically distrust the popular narrative of today's crab bucket. Skepticism is their healthy default position. So I wrote all of this actually a few years ago before they even started working on the Kings of Tupelo. It's all part of the B.B. Quincy series. And I understand that the most popular sport in this country especially is demeaning other people, especially on the internet. But before you gleefully jump aboard the bandwagon of destroying another human being, which, by the way, affects their family, it affects the future, it affects your own integrity, too. Don't you think it's actually a good idea to actually get the actual facts, the actual details? I know this sounds like I'm appealing to your better angels, even in a world where being jaded and looking externally is very vogue, subrogating your own individual cognition for a cheap substitute conclusion by trolls or by media. A lot easier, probably. But that's only because I am. I am appealing to your better angels. Get the facts first, the details that the press won't feed to you. This story is actually very, very complicated. It's not a simple narrative, and it's not for lazy minds. So, as best as I can, this channel will give you the real details.
This call is from a federal prison.
Probably even the ones that were left on the Kings of Tupelo cutting room floor. You don't have to be one of those blank-minded people, those knaves. The fact that you're even listening right now kind of shows that you're better than that. Anyway, for the day, that's my three chords and the truth.